Mothers aren't supposed to have children who suffer. We aren't supposed to have children who die. And we're not supposed to make bad people. Welcome to AMI Audiobook Review, the weekly podcast where we chat all things audiobooks. I'm your host, Ramia Amuthin, and the quote from today's episode right at the start was from The Push by Ashley Audrain. Now, do you or we ever wonder about the expectations placed? We're going to narrow down, not say women, but say mothers. The caregivers in our lives, did they really sign up? Where did the caregiving come from? Were they warned about it? And the people who bring us into this world, our mothers, what do they go through? It's not one-dimensional, and this book let me know that. The cruelties that mothers face, the hardships of pregnancy, of carrying that human inside of you, the expectations placed upon you as a woman, as a mother-to-be, someday, somewhere, the mothers that you came from, and also the love. The irreplaceable, the irreversible connection that mothers have with their child, with their little girls, with their little boys, where that all come from and where it goes. What that connection turns into, what it morphs into over days and months and years and generations. If you can stomach it, I really learned a lot and took in a lot from this book, The Push by Ashley Audrain. It was released in 2022. It was making waves everywhere for a little while. And the interesting part about it was you never really knew what you were getting into until you got into it. The synopsis does not do the book justice, but also you don't want to know more than what the synopsis offers you because then you would know too much getting into it. The pacing, the writing, the cadence of the words and the sentences and the phrases that the author brings to the table is absolutely unique. And I haven't read anything like this book in a really long time. Now, as we continue through today's episode, let's take a glance at the Selah homepage. Black Waterfalls is the first featured title up on CELAlibrary.ca, and there are 3 featured titles up there in total. Black Waterfalls by Asma Zianet Khan. This is a police procedural fiction. Artificial Divide by Robert Kinjet is the second one. It's an anthologies. And Love from Mecca to Medina by S.K. Ali is a family stories and contemporary romance that's also on the featured title. Now, Selah, we take a glance at the Selah homepage at the start of every episode because these featured titles get updated and there are wonderful blog posts up there posted by our friends from the Center for Equitable Library Access. And also, as I was scrolling through the blog, I realized in 2022, there were a lot of great moments and milestones for Selah. You can check those out by going to their blog post as well. Again, found at CELAlibrary.ca. But as you're up there, you realize, wow, there are so many great reads. The catalog is growing. The Selah collection now has more than 1.2 million titles for readers, listeners of audiobooks, ebooks up there, all kinds of accessible formats. In 2022, they expanded exchanges from other accessible library systems, both nationally and internationally, to increase the amount of titles that they have up there. And not just the titles, but the range of languages and formats that are now available for readers in Canada and readers internationally. So this is huge, huge movements for Selah. They also talk about their connection and partnership with Nels in the United States. So there's just a lot going on. And if you're not on Audible or audiobooks.com or anywhere else where you can get your audiobooks in exchange for a paid subscription, go to Sela. And if you have a print disability, you can always sign up. The signing up process is very simple. The support behind the scenes is incredible. And our friends always got our backs over there at Sela to make sure that these accessible materials get in your hands. And we've talked about and mentioned all kinds of partnerships and new initiatives that they've taken on to make sure that the things are still expanding, right? Graphic novels and other ways of accessing your books, not just on the apps and the daisy formats that we're used to, but in plenty of other ways. So the opportunities are still growing. They're always keeping us posted, and we will keep posted as well on this podcast. On today's episode of AMI Audiobook Review, we're talking to Sara Hillis. She joins us once a month for Know Your Narrator, and we're talking about one of the featured voices of Audiophile magazine under Golden Voices. Her name is January LeVoy, and we're going to talk about how she was an actress, a theater head, turned into a prolific audiobook narrator, and we're doing that all on Know Your Narrator on AMI Audiobook Review. On the second episode of each month, we check in with Sara Hillis, and she brings us Know Your Narrator, where we check out the voices behind our favorite listens. So let's get to know the lives and backgrounds and fun facts about the people behind our favorite audiobook listens. Hello, Sara. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I am looking forward to this voice. I've never heard of her. I don't think that I've been privileged to listen to any audiobooks narrated by her, but she's the second female we're featuring on here. And is there a reason why you picked her for this month?
Well, her name is January LeVoy.
So good timing.
I just thought, hey, why not do her in January?
Exactly. So tell us about her a little bit.
Well, January LeVoy has narrated a lot of notable books, none of which I've read, oddly enough, but the Diviners series by Liva Bray, if you like the sort of YA kind of fantasy genre. She narrated some books by C.L. Polk, including Even Though I Knew the End, which is the most recent one that she's done in 2022. And she's narrated Camino Island by John Grisham and several other Grishams as well. And so she's done like memoirs and thrillers and romances and like any kind of book you could name. She was born in Trumbull, Connecticut, and we don't know her age because I've never seen years. I've never seen dates anywhere. It's really interesting.
So she's keeping a secret, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I think. I don't know. But and she studied theater at Fairfield University and then went on to National Theater Conservatory in Denver, Colorado to get her Master's of Fine Arts in theater. So she's done a lot of theater. She's done a lot of stage work in plays and musicals, and she's worked on soap operas, including One Life to Live, which I used to watch a long time ago, but I don't remember. She was too late for me, I think, before it went off. I think it went off the air finally, but in the 2000s, she was on there for a bit. And during one of her plays, a voiceover agent, Sherry Hoffman, who's really well known in the voiceover and audiobook narration circles, I think a lot of narrators have her as an agent, came to see the show and said, would you be interested in doing voiceover work? So she got involved in commercials and other things. And then somebody said, look, there's an audiobook audition. Would you like to try out? I don't know what the book was, but she said sure, and they liked her. And her first book, she narrated under a pseudonym. And I don't know what book that was, and I don't know what the pseudonym was this time. I couldn't find that. But she was kind of scared that audiobook narration would look bad on her resume back in 2008 or 9, which is interesting because I don't know that people think that now.
No, I don't think so. But it's pretty wild that, somebody went to go see her shows and pulled her into something completely different than what she was even exposed to.
Yeah, I think they were scouting because one of the people in the show was already doing voiceover work, and I think they said, come see the show and see what the actors are doing and see if you like anybody, sort of thing. So that was part of it, and she sort of asked, does it pay? Does it? And they said, yes, it does. She was always a little concerned about
Good on
that.
her.
Of course, one would be.
Yeah.
And so I think she's worked with pretty much every major publisher of audiobooks in America and in the US. And she's a book lover. So like a lot of our narrators, she wants to give the listener the experience of the book as much as she can, not the experience of herself, but the experience of the book that she's reading, because she loves reading books too. So yeah.
So the book that you said she did in a pseudonym, which we don't know the title of, that was her first book?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting intention, right? To go into your first book with a totally different name. And I'm wondering if it's because she wasn't sure if she was going to do this long term.
Well, there's that, and it was also that she wasn't sure if the soap operas would keep taking her seriously.
Yeah, that's true too.
Because even beyond the whole is audiobook narrating cool or not, even beyond that, I think soap opera taping it's really heavy schedules.
Yes, it is.
So you have to be available, right?
Yeah. Right, exactly, because it's, weekly episodes and all that. But it's kind of the same thing that people face nowadays, right? Like years and decades later, we're still kind of thinking the same thing. If you're in one project, are you allowed? Are you able to? Can you have flexible enough schedule to be in a part of something else completely different, but also as much demanding as the other thing? And people who work freelance and contract in arts struggle with this all the time.
Yeah, I know a few people that have successfully done like multiple things, but it's hard.
Yeah.
So I love I heard a really cool interview with her, and she explained that as she's reading her books for preparation, she kind of casts her characters with people that she knows in her life. So she has an idea of what the voices would be from the people that she's thinking that they're like. Which is, I kind of think that's cool. Some people use like TV actors, and some people use people that they actually know,
right,
to kind of get an idea of what the character will be like. And and in the studio, she brings a physicality to her narration. She says, like, the interviewer asked her, "Well, how do you do men? Because you're a woman and you have a female voice." And
yes.
Some women really, exaggerated about it. And how do you? Because you don't seem to do that. How do you do it? And she says, "Well, you can make your voice do different things by moving your shoulders a certain way or sitting a certain way, very carefully because of the microphone, obviously. But she brings a physicality to her, especially to her male characters, I think, to emphasize it and to use her instrument, which is what she calls her voice, differently for different situations. Which I just think that's really fascinating to me.
Yeah, I'm curious about that, definitely, because it seems to be her process, I guess. But making that into a method is so interesting because, like you said, she's also picking people up or voices up from people she knows in real life, right? So is she trying to emulate their postures, their expressions, the way they speak with their hands, maybe gestures, and putting all that into her narration as well? Like, is she really trying to embody the character or the person that way?
I would say to a point, because obviously if you move your hands around, you're gonna mess up the
it becomes
recording,
too
right?
theatrical for recording.
But no, she does what she can physically to put herself in that character's place, and she freely admits that some of her character voices get used in different books. Like, it's not like she absolutely has different voices for everybody, because, well, you can't. I mean, you just couldn't. I mean, she's read, I don't know if I've had a number of how many books she's read since she started, but she's only 13 or 14 years in.
Okay.
And she's read like a lot of books in that time because she just works and works and works.
Yeah.
And she's won several Audie awards for young adult fantasy and children's narration and that kind of stuff. Best female. She's been nominated for Best Female Narrator for sure. For the Audies, which are the American Publishing Association awards. And she's won earphone awards many times from Audiophile, which is they're just little things they just do every week or every month. They say which narrators got the earphone awards this month, kind of thing. and she's a Golden Voice at Audiophile magazine. She's since 2016 or so, she's been best of in their best of list every year, including 2022. And I really think she's just I haven't read a full book by her, I admit this, but I've listened to some samples and such, and she's got this crisp diction, which is good, but her voice is also warm and engaging, and she sort of compels you from the minute she opens her mouth. Like, you're in the story, basically, the way she sets it. Like, there's no sort of wishy-washy beginning. It's just like, here we are, this is what you're talking about, and this is what we're doing, and I think that's really cool.
Now, is that the way you interpret it? Is that just a confident reader, or her style of bringing us right in? What would you attest that to?
I think it's a bit of both. I think there's certainly confidence there, and there's also she really tries to know the books that she's reading, of course, and figure out how to set the scene auditorially, I suppose, as well as via the narration itself, the words.
Has she said anything about the way she goes into reads? If she's picking up a book or a project, how she preps for that, aside from what you've mentioned already, which is the characterizations, right? But how about, I think I'm going to do this with this part, or this action scene is going to go like this. Is there a lot of that preparation?
She tries not to do a lot of marking, like writing things down in the script or whatever, because she's a big believer in the moment. So she has an idea of how things have to go.
Right.
But she lets the narration kind of flow rather than sort of scientifically going, all right, well, this, like, other than, okay, I need these kind of accents for these people or that kind of stuff. Obviously she will do that. But she really tries to let her acting or her performing just be, because the moment can bring things out that you didn't think it would, and she really likes that about it. So she feels confident enough to just let the book move along after she's read it several times and knows it pretty well, and she doesn't sort of, as I say, well, this sentence has to be said this way, or this has to be done that way, or like, the one thing she does do, interestingly, is she doesn't believe in speeding up her narration for an action scene. She actually believes in sort of slowing it down, in a sense, because it's not a movie camera. You can't flip back and forth the way you can with a movie camera. You have to think about what the narrator's saying so you can get all the information in the action scene, because it's a lot of words. And I think she lets the shorter sentences, the pacing of the actual prose work for her, instead of actually speeding up her own pacing, so that people can digest it more. She feels that that's how she should do it anyway.
That's brilliant. I've never heard it said so well, or described so well, because there are all these different things, Sarah, that we point out, right? The difference between watching this as a TV show or a movie versus a book. And then even when we're reading, we say, well, what's the difference between human narration, and why do we connect more with this versus an ebook read with our screen readers, or even reading physically or visually or with Braille? And I think that, the performance, as always, makes a huge impact on our learning or reading experience. And when she describes why she would slow down an action scene and really breaks that down for us, it's like, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah, I think it's very. The other thing she said was she likes to listen to audiobooks, but only when they're like memoirs read by the person that wrote them. She doesn't really want to hear other performers performing. I think, or herself.
I agree with her on that.
She wants to read. Like, if she wants to hear a book narrated, it's because she loves reading anyway. She'll just read something with her eyes. But when she wants to hear a book narrated, she wants to hear the person that wrote it, and it's about the person, because that's what's fascinating to her. Really.
And I guess in those senses, do you put a lot of pressure on people reading their own memoirs in terms of performance?
I personally don't, because some of it is like the publisher says, you should do this. And they're like, okay. I don't think they're always so keen to do it. So if I hear a memoir, it's a little different for me than an actual professional narrator. Yeah,
that's true. And you said she does a lot of accents, right?
Yeah, she can do, like, goodness, she can do English and Scottish and Irish and different accents from India, different accents from Africa. Like, she really tries to do what she can. In terms of that, she is of color, so she's done a few memoirs. Like, she helped to narrate Coretta Scott King's memoir with Felicia Rashad and Coretta Scott King, but she did some of it too. So she works in that space sometimes too. Those kinds of memoirs, especially, she likes to do that because she thinks it's super important to her that these voices get represented, and she wants to help do that.
Yes, and I've talked about, in different occasions on the show, about different narrators finding their impact that way, just knowing that them being chosen as the representation of that person's, either BIPOC identity or this character's BIPOC identity or whatever is a huge. It means it's very meaningful to them.
Yeah. I think everybody I've heard who has participated in narrating books that are important to them for those reasons, that they say that to me, or not to me, but to their interviewers. Yeah, I don't go around talking to narrators all my life.
Yeah, no, for sure. So you said she likes listening to audiobooks when they're memoirs, and she's a big bookworm. Does she talk anything else about her theater coming back into her narration?
Yeah, she jokes, like most of them do, that when you're narrating, everybody gets their lines right. That's you don't have to. Yeah, it sounds like everybody seems to, and Davina Porter said it. A few other people said it, because you don't have to work off someone and go, well, they said that wrong. What do I say now? You get to do it yourself. And again, it's and she helps other narrators too. And she says, like, the big thing is to learn, again, to tone yourself down, because you're not speaking to a room, you're speaking to a microphone and somebody's earbuds.
Yes.
So you have to change registers in that way. But,
and she says she's a visual learner.
Yeah, she's very visual. She reads everything, and the words get pushed to her brain very quickly from her eyes. There's no sort of interpretation needed. She can go pretty fast that way. So that's part of the reason why she doesn't listen to many audiobooks either, is because she's really not. It doesn't help her the way it might help somebody else to get the book better. She just doesn't. For her, it's a bit of a barrier. So she just reads it because it goes in her brain easier that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love listening to any of these narrators talk about what's important to them that the listener gets from this experience, right? So what they're bringing to the listener specifically, or, what they think is going to be that capturing point when we pick up their audiobook. So it's cool because you talked about what she finds important as well, right?
Yeah, she says that she's a lens through which the book is focused. So she's not the book. she sort of shapes it for you. As it's shaped on the page, she tries to shape it for the audio, audio file, I suppose, for the listening, right? So she really wants to put herself kind of in the background and the book be the important thing. And she says, when people say to her, I feel like you narrated this book just for me, like, she really thinks she's done her job well, because people really feel special.
Yeah. And it's true. And I can imagine how wonderful that feels for the person narrating that book. Why don't we end it on what, did we talk about this already? What an acting teacher once told her that she sticks with.
Yeah, I didn't say this specifically yet, but the acting teacher said, you have to be afraid. You have to be confident enough to go out onto the thinnest of ice and let it break beneath you, and not be afraid that it will. Like, not be afraid of that, because that's what I was talking about when she doesn't want to script herself too much with her narration, because she just wants the moment to kind of take over and let things happen more spontaneously.
That is fantastic. I'm really, really impressed. Would all have to go and find something by her, January LeVoy, so that we can check her out and remember all these different points that we talked about today when we're listening to her actual book. Thank you so much, Sara.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
We'll talk to you in February. I don't know if we'll feature someone named February, but whoever we feature will be fun and awesome and a wonderful narrator to have on Know Your Narrator. I'm Ramya. I'm the host of AMI Audiobook Review. We'll be back next week, and we'll check in with an avid audiobook listener on that podcast episode and their recommendations for us. And until then, happy audiobook listening.